I don't even think Good Smile partners with their licensors. Yeah, no. Japanese companies are incredibly hard to work with when you're trying to put your branding together. It is really hard and just straight up not doable in most cases. Also, I'm so stoked to work with some of the game companies that we're working with for sponsor stuff, because like once you get into that and you know how to work with Japanese companies, you can. It's just really hard to go through some of the red tape. But if you show a big willingness to do it, you know, they really will want to work with you if they can. They just won't change their structure, you know. So we've had like an amazing time working with Koei Tecmo and shit. Like the fact that Koei Tecmo let me in on like all of their plans with Neo 3 was just huge. Like that's rare. And yeah, getting to work with Capcom on Monster Hunter as well. I feel like the game companies have been the most flexible with that, but even then they're willing to work with me because it's me, because I'm willing to adjust to the way they work, and a lot of folks are not. So it's a lot of work to get those types of projects done, because there's just, like I said, so much red tape to working with these Japanese companies. But I'm very like willing to do things with them, and like genuinely they just had never done anything with creators before until working with us. Like Koei Tecmo wasn't even sponsoring people, wasn't sponsoring streamers. They weren't doing stuff like that regularly, you know, like that wasn't kind of part of their marketing. And we were the first to get them to do like an outfit collab and to do like these additional things. And you know, that's how much they like us. Right? Monster Hunter with the outfits, I was in that first ever wave. It was just me and Limes when we did Monster Hunter outfits. We were the first ones. They had never considered doing that with like especially anyone in the West before that, you know. But it's very, you know, it's a bit daunting for them, but they like working with us, and they like our willingness to understand how they work, you know. They work exclusively through SponsorBot. Yeah, Koei Tecmo doesn't work through anyone else. They just work through SponsorBot, which, you know, I think that means they like us, to say the least. They really like us. So I'm glad. I love working with them. The team is awesome. The team is great. And I'm just trying to connect to a lot more publishers, a lot more like game related brands, especially because I'm kind of identifying that there are clear reasons why they like working with us. And like at first I was like, wow, I'm really surprised that people like working with us so much. It can't be bad elsewhere. It must just be that like we just hit right place, right time. But no, it's actually they just really like working with us that much more. And I'm like, oh damn. Okay. So now I feel confident now that we've done this for a while. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So now I'm like, okay, now I can brag. Before that, I was still learning the ropes and everything. But now that I see how much they enjoy working with us, yeah, I'm just glad that I'm glad that we've gotten through all those bumps and figured it out. We're even working with like Japanese agencies too, because you know we work with the publishers and the sponsors, but we also then work directly with like agencies and individual creators and stuff. Like we kind of work with both sides, and yeah, we've got a bunch of agencies and stuff too as well from Japan, which is cool because they're also, you know, notoriously difficult to work with, because if you're Western and you're used to a Western way of working and then you try to fit into the Eastern way of working, if you're not used to that, that can be really tough. But we're really good at, you know, adapting or giving them things that they can adapt to kind of both ways. So that's been working out very well, thankfully. And that was one of the things I made really clear to all my people. I was like, hey, not everyone works the same, especially not people in Japan, you know, like we're going to have to set up our systems to be able to handle a lot of different things and just our processes, and you know, and we're getting there. Or we really, not even we're getting there, we are there. And I'm really happy about that. Would you say the biggest differences between the Eastern and Western work ethic? It's less that I have insight into the work ethic and more the processes of these companies. Like Japan has a really rigid system that almost all companies kind of follow with how paperwork is handled and how decisions are made. Hierarchy and structure working in on that. Western companies tend to be very different from each other, and it's just however the people who work there set it up is how it's set up. There are some things that stay across the board, but you know, it's usually by industry. In Japan, companies work as companies do. There's like this type of structure and how things are done. So for example, I'm in a Japanese agency and I'm a VTuber, and I'm like, I want to do a project. I need to request budget for this project and I need approval. I have to write up a document, a formal, you know, here's my proposal of what I want to do, which is good. And then I give it to my manager, and my manager looks it over, maybe rewrites it with me, maybe tells me to rewrite it, you know, whatever their role is supposed to be at that company. And they approve, and they're like, okay, this is good to hand up. And then that gets handed up to the next layer of whoever's in charge of that thing. Let's say it's like a sponsor thing. Now it goes to my sales department. Now the people in charge of the sales department have to read it over and decide if they want to approve it, blah, 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 whatever. And then if that gets approved, them and like the two other people that work in that department and are heads of that department have to use their official rubber stamps, and they have to rubber stamp the paper, the proposal, to show their like 100% consent of, yes, I'm saying yes to this, right? And then after that, then it goes up to one more layer above that is like slightly more executive level, and they look over that. And then depending on how big the company is, it might have to go up more levels or not. Just depends on how many layers there are, you know? And yeah, and they stamp that shit, and it just goes up and down, and it takes so much time. And this is why a lot of people that work in Japanese corpos will have issues. People who are Western will have issues because they're not used to that sort of work environment. And it is something you can absolutely get used to and you can absolutely work with, but you just have to recognize that a lot of things will take a lot of time. And if one person in that line of rubber stamps that need to be stamped onto the paper is like, actually no, then it's a no. Everyone has to approve it for it to go through. So there could be a lot of people at the company that do support your project proposal, but if there's like one person that's just absolutely not budging, then they're not budging. And if you can't adjust your proposal to be what they will agree to, then that's it. Not even room for negotiation. Usually they hand it back and then you can resubmit it changed. But that's not a sit-down negotiation so much as that is just resubmitting papers over and over, you know? And that's why a lot of Western folks get really frustrated, because they're used to being able to pull their manager into a meeting and just, you know, grab an exec, not an exec, but, you know, like someone one layer up and just talk about it. You don't necessarily get to do that in every Japanese office. Some kind of can, some you don't. But yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough when all business works that way to then be like, yeah, let's, you know, bring your sponsorships to the West, right? Like, but if you're able to understand this and you're able to work with it like we were, and we were able to really kind of mesh and blend and meet somewhere in the middle, then, you know, it's doable, but you need a lot of patience. I think that's the problem, is some folks that are used to Western work culture don't have the patience for it. Like, they genuinely never will, some of them. So you gotta have the right team. But yeah, if you ever see people in JP Corpos kind of crashing out a little bit about their work environment, it's a lot of stuff like that. And that's why it's not always 100% like, ooh, the corpo's bad. It's sometimes it could be, but sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's just these things functionally don't match up, and that's difficult, right? In Japan, work culture has a very know your place. Your place is your place. You don't go and just act above your level. Whereas in the West, you know, sometimes you kind of can. Sometimes you kind of can, especially when you're like a creator, you can. But yeah, my place is my place, and I stay in my place. I stay in my lane is very much the work culture over there. JP work culture is wildly different on almost every conceivable level. Yeah, you really have to sit there. Like, I had to sit down and just study how this shit works. Straight up. You know, you can't just read one article and be like, I know now. I had to study it. I had to ask questions. I had to become very familiar, you know. But now that we're at that point, now we can work with all sorts of JP companies on the gaming side, sponsor side, on the creator side, like no problem. It might just be a little slower than we might be able to work with some Western companies, because they're willing to break their molds a little more to get things done, you know, on crazy timelines and stuff. How does Korean work culture compare? It depends on what company. I'd say Korean work culture, like structure format, can be a little more similar to Western than Japanese, but it's got a good amount of the hierarchy stuff still going on. But it's company dependent. I'd say it's a little more similar to Western companies, but it still has a bit of that air of know your place that Japan has, which, to be fair, there is some of that in Western work culture too. It's not like that doesn't exist, but you know, it's a little stronger in Korea than it would be in the West, for sure. But yeah, it's all really interesting. I like learning about this stuff.